Over the past year, I've run into several blog posts and articles and whatnot that talk about a philosophical dilemma of sorts, and that's whether or not to tolerate the intolerant, or how far should we tolerate intolerance. And that's part of the flaw of the concept is I feel is because it's a very wide net. Intolerance can be everything from I don't want to date people from X ethnic group, all the way towards I hate people in this ethnic group, and I feel it's okay to enact violence against them, and you engage in it. On one side, it's their activities that we feel are very, while we might find it distasteful, I don't think anybody who's a serious thinker thinks that should be outlawed, or there should be a serious effort to correct their wrong think. And the other side, we obviously all right-thinking and moral and just people abhor violence. And so it's the middle ground that there's the debate on, right? And it usually falls in the realms of free speech and our interactions with companies who provide goods and services. For the free speech part, that often comes down to when is it okay to deplatform someone? And for the commerce stuff, it's like, what are the things that we should be allowed to determine who we hire or who we sell to? And the answer to all of this is property rights. As far as free speech goes, you own yourself, so you get to express yourself however you want, insofar as that you don't prevent somebody else from doing it. And if we scale that out a little bit, you get to practice your free speech on any platform or any physical location that you want to, barring you're not violating the property rights of the individual that owns the platform, whether it's in real life or digital. And I think this is the more concrete ground to stand on, because when you talk about deplatforming and if we should tolerate intolerant people speaking, it gets very muddy. If 10 people listen to the same speech, you can often, I think it's not unreasonable to imagine that you would get 10 different interpretations. And a lot of that is bound to the individual's temperament, their ideology, their memory, their ability to process it, IQ, everything. It's all highly variable, and human beings already have a flawed enough. I think we all should know that human beings have a pretty flawed ability to process things and to take our own biases out of how we interact with the world. We're all very susceptible to missing information that we don't want to see and to focusing on the information that we think is valuable, and that can cause a lot of problems, right? So like, how do you, before anybody can speak, are we just going to take a vote and be democratic about it and take a vote and say like, oh, you get to speak or you don't? I for one don't like democracy because it's mob rule, and we all know we should all be very familiar with how dumb people can be in groups, and allowing the mob to determine who and who cannot speak is highly subjective and can cause a lot of problems, and overall it tramples over the rights of individuals. But if we focus on the rights, if we focus on the property rights, person A gets to speak as long as they do not violate anybody else or act violently, and the property owners of these whatever platform it is, they get to decide who gets to speak, no matter how repugnant. And even just practically, an arbitrary group of people going in and deplatforming someone just makes you look bad, and it's argument through intimidation, which is it's not logical and it's not persuasive. So property rights, I feel, fixes the issue of trying to determine who should speak, who should not speak, what level of intolerance should we, or how much of intolerance should we allow for. The answer is whoever the property right stake owners in the situation are. Everyone else can practice their property rights by refraining from listening to that speaker, or rebutting that speaker, or directly communicating with that person and having an open debate, trying to win, the argument through reason and logic, and not through intimidation and being a crybaby. There's also another realm of intolerance that a lot of people take very seriously and get very passionate over. And my answer here is quite a bit more, let's say, controversial than my belief about deplatforming and free speech. I think most people can agree with that. But as far as employment relations and deciding who you sell your goods and services to is also an issue of property rights, and is not an issue of should we bar people from exercising their property in a manner that they want to. And so that means you can hire and fire whoever you want to for whatever reason you want to. And you should be able to sell to any population of people that you want to, and not sell to whatever population of people for whatever reasons you want. Because it's your property, it's your stake in it. And if we allow people to trample one group of people that we don't like because their values are different and we don't like their values, eventually that'll be turned on everybody else. Basically, it's kind of a Lord of the Rings kind of deal. If you use the power on somebody you don't like, that power is now out in the world and it could be used on you. Of course, I don't advocate for people to discriminate on the basis of race, sex, or creed, or anything else that is, let's say, subjective, or maybe not necessarily important in deciding who is going to be a good worker and who you want to sell to. I don't advocate for that at all. In fact, I feel the best way to address people who have intolerant views is to not associate with them, and to spread information about whatever the practice of whatever company that you don't like to other people. Because, and I feel that's fine, because it's a function of free speech, right? I get to speak my mind to the best of my ability, and anybody else who wants to listen can use the property rights of themselves. And if they agree, well, then we can all say, like, well, I don't like the practices of this company, and we could do a boycott. And I think that's the balance of the property rights argument, is that your reputation isn't your property per se, because reputation is what I want you to see in me and what other people see in me. And I can't control what other people say or think or do. And so it's a negotiation. And if myself, or if a company in general, has practices that are objectionable to a large number of people, well, then they will just lose business. And they will have have to come to grips with the social damage to themselves that they do. It might be easy, it might be reflexive to imagine that property rights as a concept and a control for things it's me, myself, I'm an island, screw everybody else, I don't care what anybody else thinks. And it's not the case at all. It's 50-50, or it might even be, if you want to get real hardcore into, thinking about what a market is, it's mostly what other people perceive of you. And that's a large thing that you can't control dishonestly, because people are going to observe you and your actions. And so you have to make people want to interact with you, you have to present the best version of yourself, or the information that other people want to see in order for them to interact with you. And so it's not in no way is the argument for free markets and property rights an argument for a vacuum and allowing people to do whatever they want to do. You can't. I can't do whatever I want to do with my friends, my significant other, with my employer, because they get to choose whether or not to associate with me. And I believe that's the best way to dialogue about values and how to handle intolerance. Obviously, in the past, it was okay to be intolerant to minorities, people who are different, all those things in the U.S. But like, it's not just a problem in the U.S. Like, the same thing happens in India, the same thing happens in the Middle East, the same thing happens in Europe. But obviously, the groups just change. In India, obviously, they're split up between different languages and religions and tribes, and they all practice intolerance to each other. And the same thing in the Middle East. The U.S. is not, by no means, is unique in its history of prejudice and stuff. And actually, I would argue that the U.S. has progressed the furthest. And I would argue that that is because we have not enshrined... Okay, I'm wrong. We have enshrined bigotry and slavery and Jim Crow into law. But I would argue we have done it to a lesser extent than other places. And we've let people have not to a perfect degree, but to an extent, to have a free dialogue amongst each other and to associate as they wish. And over time, obviously, if you don't force association, there can be free association. That's superior, in my estimation. I am on a tangent. Intolerance is something to be hashed out between people, as long as it's peaceful. Obviously, we should not tolerate violence against individuals or property, which we already have in existing law. So what we have to now is just speak with each other freely and not try to use the power of the state to control each other, because that it rarely ever works out. And I don't even mind people. I might say that, oh, when should we tolerate the intolerance? Blah, blah, this and that. Like, actually, I don't even mind that sort of low resolution or perhaps subjective way of trying to address these things, as long as we leave the state out of it, right? And then that's how we can really, really have a dialogue about it. There's the last post I read about this intolerance thing tried to say that the democratic process of determining laws is part of the dialogue of determining what intolerance is okay and what intolerance is not okay. And I would say it's flat out wrong. I mean, when have politicians... It goes back to my earlier point, right? Okay, well, so people vote for the politicians they want, and the politicians express the ideas of the people into law, and then that gets enforced on everybody else. But then again, democracy is mob rule, and I don't trust a group of people with subjective experiences and who have not fully thought out repercussions of how society should run to vote in assholes who don't care about what they think anyways, and will just go for whatever gets them elected, and will, bring money into their re-election funds. All that to say, the best way to protect individuals is to protect property rights. And it is a little messy, and there will be arguments, and there won't be a one-size-fits-all. But if we protect individuals, that means that even the groups that are underrepresented or underprotected in society will get the protection they need in order to improve their lives. There's no way that we're going to make every group of people, every level of intelligence, every experience in life to have a similar quality and a similar experience in society. It's impossible to do because we're not equal. Where we can be equal and where we can protect people the best is in protecting their bodies and their property and preventing those from being violated. I believe it's a logical fallacy to pretend that you're protecting property rights by preventing some individuals from exercising those rights. That being said, thank you for listening. I'll see you later. Bye.